Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to this webinar presentation from Great Northern Minerals, a little junior explorer looking for gold in North Queensland and hopefully one of the newest producers to come. We're going to have a bit of a look at the year in review and the year coming up, and we're going to hand across to Technical Director Simon Coxell and Managing Director Karen McLean to walk us through the program. So over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning, everybody. We thought we'd take the opportunity just to give you a bit of a sort of run through what the last 12 months has been, which has been a very active drilling program. The focus has specifically been on Camel Creek. You'll recall in 2020, the focus was at Big Rush, and that work there, which encompassed 3 different drilling programs, defined a resource of approximately 154,000 ounces at Big Rush. 2021 has seen a real renewed focus at Camel Creek. Camel Creek is the largest of the gold systems we have, and drilling had been very limited. There's never been a JORC resource for Camel Creek, and we thought it was very important to systematically assess the entire strike length of Camel Creek. So we kicked that off in April of this year, fighting COVID and all those sorts of things, but a very successful program that encompassed approximately 9,000 metres of RC drilling. That drilling was spaced at regular 40-metre intervals over about 2.2 kilometres of strike of the old workings that had previously been mined down to about 35 metres vertically. That was then, I guess within that 2.2 kilometres, we identified a series of hotspots of higher grade zones, particularly at an area called the Hin Zone, and we then tightened up the drilling further with another program that kicked off in July, over about 1,200 metres of strike. Again, we completed some deeper RC and some infill RC, and following that, we've now just completed a diamond drilling program. The diamond drilling program was focused in the Hin Zone because that's where we had some of the more significant intersections, and we just wanted to confirm our geological interpretation, obtain some samples for in situ bulk density determinations that you then use to convert the volume of the ore body of the mineralisation to the tonnage. So that's completed. There was about 490 metres of HQ diamond drilling, and that core is now in the process of being cut, or has been cut, and will be submitted to the laboratory. The core was very interesting. It identified a very strong myelinitic shear zone, which has basically confirmed the interpretation. We had accumulations of sulfide within that core, so we'll await the assays with interest, but we've got our fingers crossed that there'll be some good numbers there, and more importantly, it confirms our interpretation of the mineralised structure. So going forward from here, what we're going to be doing is there'll be as soon as we get the diamond assays back and the in situ bulk density determinants back, we'll then complete the initial, and it's the first JORC resource for Camel Creek. There's been a few queries, what's it going to be, and on social media and stuff. We do the work, but what I would say is that, you know, our drilling has identified a consistently mineralised zone that extends over approximately 1,200 metres. It averages 4 to 5 metres of true thickness, and we've defined it with our RC down to about 150 metres. So that's sort of the parameters that we're working on at the moment. So once we have the JORC resource for Camel Creek, we can then move very swiftly into a scoping study. We've collected some metallurgical, large metallurgical samples that are in ALS in Perth, and there'll be a series of metallurgical tests to determine what the optimum recovery of that gold mineralisation is. So that's how we see things proceeding, but we've been very happy with the results today. Going further forward, and something that's quite significant is we've always known that Camel Creek had significant quantities of antimony. It occurs in the form of a mineral called stibnite, which is about 70% antimony. And the preliminary indications was that it was very closely associated with the gold mineralisation. From what we've seen in the diamond core, that is in fact the case, and not surprisingly, often these style of deposits, and as a direct analogy, we've talked about Fosterville, but another one that's very similar in Victoria is called Costerfield. So a company called Mandalay Resources is currently mining Costerfield, and we think that our deposit has very similar geological characteristics of that. But what we've seen with antimony, particularly over the last 12 months, is that the price has risen from $6,500 US a tonne to $12,000 US a tonne. So given the current exchange rate, that equates to in the order of $16,000 a tonne. So if you've got a % antimony, it's theoretically worth $160 a tonne. Now, I went through some of the previous intercepts. We do multi-element analysis on all of our 1 metre samples, and we've got results of 7 metres at 5.3, 14 metres at 1.2, 5 metres at 0.8%. So that could be quite a significant byproduct during our processing and add significant value. The metallurgical test work will focus on the recovery of the antimony in association with the recovery of the gold. So we're pretty excited about that. It potentially adds an additional 25% of revenue to our project. And the metallurgical test work combined with the scoping study will address all those important parameters, CapEx, OpEx, and really let us understand what the key drivers of our projects look like. We're also planning to complete some drilling at the Golden Cup prospect. So I've got a couple of long sections here of Golden Cup. Golden Cup spatially is approximately 15 kilometres from Camel Creek and has only been drilled to 80 metres vertical depth. So we expect Camel Creek to be similar to we expect Golden Cup to be similar to Camel Creek in terms of the mineralisation extending to great vertical depth, and we'll conduct a drilling program at Golden Cup with a view to expanding potential reserves to feed through a central processing facility at Camel Creek. So that's really where we see things developing over the next 12 months. We've also mentioned Mike's anomaly. Mike's anomaly sits just outside of our mining leases at Big Rush. It extends over approximately 500 metres of strike. It's defined on a topographic hill with outcropping quartz veining. We've had a rock chip sample of 26 grams and we propose to be drilling that as well as Golden Cup and additional holes in Camel Creek in 2022. So that's the plan going forward, but we think it's going to be a game-changing year for us in 2022, where all those building blocks that we've been working on for the last 18 months to 2 years will come together, understand exactly what the project looks like and what the economics of that project looks like. So that's where we're going, and I think it's going to be very successful. So that's sort of just a brief overview of where we are. You've seen most of these slides before. Beautiful brecciated quartz veining within a very consistent mineralised zone. These are the structures that cut through the stratigraphic sequence at Camel Creek and Golden Cup and Big Rush, and we can identify those visually, and they are very continuous structures. They basically overprint the geological formations, which gives us these very lenticular and predictable zones of mineralisation. So that's sort of where we are and where we're going.
Thanks, Simon. It's there's some really good images there from site showing the topographical features. I like the fact that the Big Rush outcropping is on a topographical hill as well, which it's nice when you don't have much overburden and you're actually taking the top off the structure. Is that the sort of thing you could envisage happening there at Big Rush?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly at Mite's anomaly, we need to do the drilling to understand exactly what that mineralisation looks like. Camel Creek is different, series of open pits that have been mined down to 30 metres, 35 metres. But effectively, the sulphide ore is exposed on the bottom of those open pits. So we envisage relatively low strip ratios once we commence operations there.
We'll go in a bit more technical detail on some of it in a moment, but just the questions come through about the recent capital raising and why there was no share purchase plan where there had been in the past. What was your thinking around that?
Yeah, if I can grab that one. So why was there no share purchase plan for shareholders? We did undertake a share purchase plan earlier in the year. There was a shortfall. We're approaching Christmas, and from a timing perspective, we wanted to keep it simple, so there was no sort of overhang into next year. January is typically pretty difficult to raise funds. People are all away, and we had support from our broker. So we wanted to go into 2022 with the funding not being a distraction, because as Simon's alluded to, we've got a number of milestones in early January, assays, scoping study, resource estimate at Camel Creek, and we saw that having funding was going to be, too much of a distraction. Should we have waited till after the assays came out at the end of January was another question that I had here, when maybe we could have done it at a higher price. Well, I guess at the levels we raised at it, whilst it is a disappointment, I think it's a risky business, putting off your capital raising in the hope that the market might appreciate assays that we haven't even got yet. So that was the thinking behind that. As I say, we're well placed now to build on what has been a massive year for the company.
That's right, Cameron. I've seen that plenty of times, people waiting for the market to improve or whatever, and then being surprised negatively. And given that markets are quite healthy at the moment, it's probably a good time. And as you say, you'll be heading into 2022 fully cashed up with a full program ahead. And so the last 12 months, there was a lot of achievement with COVID restrictions on travel and staffing limitations and all sorts of areas. Talk us about what you're able to get done in this year, because for a company of your size, moving into a resource upgrade, a scoping study, it's got to be congratulated, I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, the market can be a fickle beast, so it's good to know that we're now fully funded for all of our activities in 2022. As I sort of indicated at the start, we started the year in April with the first drilling program at Camel Creek, completing the order of 9,000 metres of drilling. Followed that up with another deeper RC program and a bit of infill to understand what those structures were actually doing, and then finished off the year with the diamond drilling. We've also collected large metallurgical composites for the metallurgical test work, and we've been doing some work behind the scenes in terms of leading into the scoping study and understanding some of those key parameters. I mentioned antimony before, and we don't want to sort of wave the flag before we're ready, but there's the old heap leach pad at Camel Creek has been leached effectively of the gold. We've sampled some of that. It averages 0.2, 0.25 grams per tonne gold, but the antimony is still intact. So as well as the metallurgical test work on the RC drill samples, we're going to complete some metallurgical test work on the million tonnes of heap leach material that's sitting there at Camel Creek. The antimony doesn't leach out like the gold, so it'll be still in situ, and that may be a really free kick for us. But we'll integrate aspects of the metallurgical test work of that with the economic parameters and just understand what that actually may mean. So yeah, it has been a big year, but I think 2022 is going to be a bigger year, Pete.
Having the antimony in the stockpiles there is a fantastic advantage. how difficult, what is the process for the extraction of antimony, and how, without having the benefit of the scoping study or feasibility study already, just in your experience extracting antimony from a stockpile?
Antimony has a specific gravity of about 4.8. Quartz is 2.6. So we'll be looking at a crushing process, followed by a gravity concentration, followed by a flotation, something of that order, to produce a high-grade antimony concentrate. But it's coarse rock on the heap leach pad. They never systematically crush the rock, but it's all oxidized material. It's all degraded and weathered. But I'm confident that a series of gravity concentration steps and flotation steps will produce a concentrate that you could then market.
That would be pretty good news to come out next year if that was the case. Back to the metallurgy and the mineralisation of these projects, we haven't looked at some of the surrounding operations in the region. Does the mineralogy sort of look similar? Have you got anything to compare with?
Look, they're all a bit different. I mean, as I said at the start, Costerfield is the closest geologically to what we've got, based on a lot of research that I've completed in terms of looking for analogies to Camel Creek and Golden Cup. And, you know, they also produce, at Costerfield, produce a concentrate which they sell. So that's the type of operation that we're looking at, because the capex in terms of producing a float plant as opposed to a float plant and then a CIP and producing gold bars is significantly higher if you take it through the nth degree. But our understanding, based on some conversations we've had with people who know, is that you can get 85% payment of the gold in a concentrate. So that's what we're aiming to do. Lower capex costs, lower OPEX, and away we go.
That's what shareholders like to hear, Simon. And just reiterating, I think you covered it before, timing for the resource upgrade and scoping study next year. It's things we can really look forward to.
Yeah, no, look, I'd envisage the, I think we've got a final slide here. Look, the JORC resource will be completed by the end of Q1 2022. We'd be aiming to have the scoping study complete by the end of Q2 2022. That depends on finalising the metallurgical test work, and all the labs are under the pump. But you know, we're pushing them for that. So that's sort of the timing. So the scoping study at the end of Q2 2022, and we can then assess what the results of that means and move forward in the second half of next year.
Well, look, Simon and Cameron, I think what you've achieved in the last 12 months in what has been historically one of the most challenging periods in 100 years, getting people out on site and moving through your schedule as you have done, and being at this point ready to launch in 2022. So congratulations on a good year. I'd like to thank everybody for joining in here today, and just a final comment from you as we leave and heading towards Christmas.
Yeah, can I just say also a big thank you to NWR for setting up this, and looking forward to a series of these throughout 2022 where we can continue to update the shareholders in the marketplace, and I guess wishing everybody a Merry Christmas.
Terrific. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.